Steve Wynn didn't just build the most luxurious casino on the Las Vegas Strip. He was Las Vegas, the visionary who single-handedly transformed a dusty gambling town into a global playground for the ultra-rich. Then, in a single morning, one newspaper article erased decades of empire building and sent a company valued at $20 billion into a tailspin. So the question everyone is really asking is, how does the most powerful man in Las Vegas history lose it all? And did the city he built even care that he was gone? Steve Wynn looked out at the Las Vegas Strip in the 1980s and saw something most people missed. Everyone else saw neon lights, cheap buffets, and smoky rooms full of slot machines. Wynn saw a blank canvas. He was 30-something, sharp-eyed, and more ambitious than anyone in the room. Any room. While other casino bosses were happy selling the same tired dream, Wynn wanted to build something the world had never seen before. In 1989, he opened the Mirage. It had a volcano out front that erupted every night. It had white tigers, a dolphin habitat, and Siegfried and Roy performing inside. Vegas had never seen anything like it. Tourists lined up just to walk through the lobby. The Mirage made $1 million a day in its first year. Casino bosses across the Strip sat up straight and started taking notes. Steve Wynn had changed the rules overnight. But he was not done. Not even close. In 2005, he opened the resort that would carry his own name, the Wynn Las Vegas. It cost $2.7 billion to build. Every inch of it was designed to feel like walking into a dream. The carpets were custom. The flowers were real and replaced daily. Guests checked into rooms with floor-to-ceiling windows overlooking a private golf course right in the middle of the Strip. It was not a casino trying to feel like a hotel. It was a 5-star hotel that happened to have a casino inside. Forbes gave it 5 stars. So did Michelin. Travel magazines ran out of words. The Wynn became the gold standard, the place every other resort on Earth quietly measured itself against. And Steve Wynn was at the center of all of it, personally approving everything from the restaurant menus to the color of the bathroom tiles. He was loud. He was charming. He told stories that made rooms erupt in laughter. He shook hands with presidents and performed on stage with Frank Sinatra. His name was not just on the building, it was the building. The Wynn was Steve Wynn, and Steve Wynn was the Wynn. The two things were inseparable. Nobody on the Strip was bigger. Nobody was more untouchable. And that, it turned out, was exactly the problem. On January 26, 2018, the Wall Street Journal published a story that stopped Las Vegas cold. The headline was quiet, but the contents were a bomb. More than a dozen women came forward with allegations against Steve Wynn. The accusations spanned decades. Massage therapists, salon workers, employees who worked inside his own casinos. The women described a pattern of behavior that had reportedly been known and quietly buried for years inside the company he built. By breakfast, the story was everywhere. By lunch, Wynn Resort stock had dropped 10% in a single session. By the end of the week, it had lost nearly $3 billion in value. $3 billion gone, not because of a bad quarter or a failed expansion, but because of one newspaper article and the behavior of one man. Wynn fought back immediately. He called the allegations preposterous. He said the story was politically motivated, pushed by his ex-wife during an ongoing legal dispute. His lawyers sent letters. His PR team worked the phones. But the details in the journal were specific. The sources were named, and more voices kept coming forward. The board of Wynn Resorts found itself in an impossible position. This was not a faceless executive. This was the founder, the brand, the face on every advertisement. Removing him meant admitting the problem was real. Keeping him meant standing in front of a fire that was only getting bigger. Within 2 weeks, Steve Wynn resigned as chairman and CEO. The company he had built from nothing, the company that carried his name on every building, had pushed him out the door. The damage did not stop there. Regulators in Nevada and Massachusetts opened investigations. Massachusetts was in the middle of approving a massive new Wynn casino in Everett, just outside Boston. That process froze. Investigations dragged on for months, costing the company tens of millions of dollars in legal fees and delays. In Nevada, the Gaming Control Board launched its own review. Eventually, Wynn Resorts was fined $20 million, the largest fine in Nevada gaming history at that time. Steve Wynn himself was fined $500,000 and was banned from the Nevada gaming industry for life. The man who built the modern Las Vegas Strip was no longer allowed to set foot in a casino he once owned. The empire had not just cracked, it had collapsed from the inside out. The morning after Steve Wynn resigned, the people who ran Wynn Resorts faced a problem that had no clean answer. The company was worth billions. The hotels were still standing. The chandeliers still sparkled. The flowers were still being replaced every single day. But the name above the door belonged to a man the company was now trying to forget. You cannot repaint a building overnight. You cannot remove a resort's name. Every guest who checked in, every taxi driver who gave directions, every travel magazine that ran a photo said the same 2 words: Wynn Las Vegas. Matt Maddox, the new CEO, stepped into the role with a careful, measured tone. He talked about culture. He talked about change. He commissioned an internal investigation and promised reform. New policies were written. New training programs were announced. The company set aside $20 million specifically to support employees. On the surface, it looked like a company doing everything right. But underneath, the exits had already started. Top executives who had built careers around Steve Wynn began quietly leaving. Some departed within weeks of the resignation. Others followed over the next several months. These were not low-level employees. These were the people who knew where everything was, how everything worked, and why every decision had been made the way it had been made. When they left, they took years of knowledge with them. The Macau problem made everything worse. Wynn Resorts operated 2 massive casino resorts in Macau, China, a market that accounted for a huge portion of the company's total revenue. Macau regulators watched the scandal closely. Any hint that the company's license could be challenged sent the stock sliding again. Investors who had stayed through the initial crash started to reconsider. The recovery that Wall Street had been hoping for kept getting pushed further away. Then came the Encore question. Encore, the sister resort built right next to the Wynn, shared the same DNA, same design philosophy, same luxury standards, same price points. But without Steve Wynn's obsessive personal touch, guests and critics started to notice something harder to define. The rooms were still beautiful. The service was still polished. Something, though, felt different. The soul of the place, that electric, almost arrogant confidence that Steve Wynn personally radiated, was no longer there. And no company policy, no matter how well written, could manufacture that back into existence. Today, the Wynn Las Vegas still stands at the north end of the Strip, its bronze glass tower catching the desert sun the same way it did the day it opened. Valets still open doors. Champagne is still poured. The golf course is still green in the middle of a city built on sand. By almost every traditional measure, the Wynn is still one of the finest hotels in the world. Forbes still gives it 5 stars. Guests still pay over $500 a night for a standard room without blinking. The casino floor still hums with the sound of money moving. But the numbers tell a more complicated story. Since the scandal broke, Wynn Resorts has spent years rebuilding trust with regulators, investors, and the public. The $20 million Nevada fine was paid. The Massachusetts casino in Everett eventually opened in 2019 under the name Encore Boston Harbor, but only after a brutal regulatory fight that cost the company over $35 million in additional fines and penalties. In total, the fallout from one man's behavior cost the company well over $100 million in direct financial damage, not counting the billions of dollars lost in stock value during those first weeks. Steve Wynn did not disappear quietly. He moved to Florida. He gave interviews. He maintained his innocence. In 2022, he filed a lawsuit attempting to remove his name from the Republican National Committee's donor list, a case that briefly put him back in headlines. The man who once commanded every room he walked into was now fighting smaller battles in quieter rooms. Las Vegas, the city he built, had moved on without him. And that is the part of this story that is hardest to look away from. The Wynn Resort survived. The brand survived. The stock recovered, slowly and then steadily, climbing back toward respectability. New leadership brought new energy. The company pushed deeper into sports betting, online gaming, and international expansion. By 2024, Wynn Resorts was reporting record revenues. The machine kept running. But here is the irony that sits right at the heart of all of it. The resort that carries Steve Wynn's name is thriving, and Steve Wynn is banned from walking through its front door. The most powerful man in Las Vegas history built something so strong that it survived him completely. He is gone. The chandeliers are still sparkling. The flowers are still fresh. The guests are still checking in. So the real question was never whether the Wynn could survive the scandal. The real question is this: when a city is built on reinvention and a company outlives its own founder's legacy, does the name above the door still mean anything at all?